Then how can you be shit at skating?
I have no idea.
And you like cold stuff.
I do. I really
This is
do.
bullshit. This is
But even I got fed up with the ice after, thumping down your, is it called just tailbone? Or
yeah, tailbone or coccyx.
yeah. Oh, right, that's a coccyx. True. Yeah, thumping that on, perfectly hardened flat ice a few times. Then I got tired of it.
Did you fall?
Constantly. I did not make it more than a couple of meters at a go.
On ice. I thought you meant this frozen season that passed.
Oh, no.
3
That's
months ago.
fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Welcome to Crime by the Bar, by the way.
Welcome to Crime by the Bar. That was a very sneaky intro.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have... we bring you crime, we bring you drinks, we bring you dreams of autumn and winter.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. Oh, okay. So, where are we at tonight?
Well, you are back from your trip.
I survived. The food on the plane was disappointing.
Oh.
People complain about aeroplane food. I actually have a real soft spot for it. I don't know. It has something to do with not having to make decisions, not having to do the washing up, and everything being super salty, and it's going to be salty, and it's just nice and satisfying, and like, bring me tiny containers of things and I will feed it. I will eat it. I feel sort of like a child as well whenever I'm eating it, like, because it's just, I don't know, it's portion. They give you things, and it's never nice, but I don't know. It also really reminds me of being a kid and traveling alone, like being ferried between parents on different continents, and being
I cannot
a UM.
relate to that.
No, it's really funny when you meet other people who were UMs, unaccompanied minors, because everyone has stories about, oh yeah, this time, blah 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 blah. Travel, yeah,
Travel indeed.
it's all over. Well, I'm back at least.
True. And speaking of travel,
Yeah.
we are, as we are every week, going across the globe in search of crime.
I'm in the US this week, but with a Chinese couple.
Oh, well, I mean, that's melting pot, multinational twist, I suppose.
Yeah, kind of. It's all right.
I'm going to say that you're worse this week.
I'm definitely not.
Really?
Yeah, definitely not.
Huh. I always think it's going to be easy when I'm not bad. But
How
apparently
bad
not.
are you?
Not at all.
Not at all? How can you be not at all?
So there is something of a tragedy, but it is more of a, let's say, a social or cultural tragedy rather than, individual.
Okay. Okay, is there death in yours?
Nope.
Okay, then I'm probably worst.
Yes, finally, I said it and it came true.
Let's see. I guess I should just launch into it, right?
I think you should, because I want to hear your story.
Okay. I don't think you'll have heard of this.
Mm-hmm.
I will ask you a question later on. I am going to take you on a journey back to the early 90s. So, Xiaoye, Wang and Tianle Li. Xiaoye is also known as Alex, and Tianle is also known as Heidi. So, I will be using their American names. They adopted them later on in the story. I'm sorry, I'm using them from right now. Alex is a dude, by the way. So Alex and Heidi. Oh, I'm so sorry. They picked the names. It's fine. Alex Wang and Heidi Li. Originally, they were both from China. They met in 1991 at the University of Pennsylvania. He was studying software engineering. It was his second degree, and she was studying chemistry. Things went pretty well. They had a lot in common, and by 2001, they moved to Monroe Township in New Jersey. They got married, And by then, Heidi was working her dream job in a research department for a large pharmaceutical company. And Alex was also doing pretty well. He was working as computer software engineer. Things did become, well, kind of difficult. They had their son in 2009, and by this stage their marriage was quite strained. Heidi had really adopted American culture, and in a way that just didn't seem to sit comfortably with Alex's parents, who were very traditional.
Oh, okay.
And by the middle of 2010, they were having pretty bitter arguments, with Heidi making pretty grim threats to Alex, and Alex was really pushing for a divorce.
Making grim threats?
She was threatening to poison him because she was a chemist, and... Well,
okay, yeah. I can see that. Sorry, I got a bit shook. We went through the 90s so quickly.
Yes. I don't have a lot of history on them, and I guess it's a short enough one this week. So, by 2010, Alex was really pushing the divorce, which Heidi wasn't particularly happy with. However, by the 10th of January 2011, they were in the final stages, and arrangements had been set for custody of their 2-year-old, as well as financial and property splits. They were due to appear in court on the 14th of January to actually sign everything, stamp it, finalise it, everything. However, Alex hadn't been feeling well. He'd been down with flu, and he also had what developed into searing pain across his belly. Oh. Yeah, by this point, Heidi had been keeping a journal of all of his symptoms to see exactly how he was doing and what was going on. Alex ended up checking himself into the University Medical Center in Princeton. His symptoms really seemed to escalate quite quickly, considering it seemed like flu and a bit of a jippy tummy. His hands and feet started to lose feeling, and he eventually fell into a coma. Now, they weren't able to work out what was wrong with him until a nurse remembered a case from a decade before, when she read about from China, where a student had died of thallium poisoning. So I felt like it sounded familiar, but I couldn't remember why. The more I looked into it, the more I'm like, okay, I have no reason to know about it, but there's a whole bunch of random places where you start making connections, I guess. One of them is Prussian blue.
Oh.
That's the antidote for it. It's like super uncommon, but it's...
What?
Yeah, it's the antidote for it.
The antidote for thallium poisoning contains thallium?
No, the antidote for thallium is Prussian blue, which is that dark blue pigment that's produced from oxidation of a specific type of salts.
Okay, that makes more sense.
That is... How weird is that? Prussian blue is the antidote to thallium. Also, thallium is known as the poisoner's poison because it's odorless and tasteless, and it can be administered... It's a slow acting one, so it can be administered and then you can just kind of walk away and leave it to kick in. And it's a heavy metal, so it doesn't show up in standard tox screens. It's pretty spot on, and it's very, very difficult to trace. But it was also featured in an Agatha Christie book called The Pale Horse, which I haven't read, so that shouldn't ring any bells.
I know of it though, so that's...
But have you seen The Big Nothing with Simon Pegg and David Schwimmer?
No, I haven't.
Have you really not?
No.
You need to see it. David Schwimmer, Simon Pegg, Alice Eve. I think it was the directorial debut of David Schwimmer. Or no, was it? Well, anyway, it's actually a really good movie. It's kind of an independent-ish film. It has that sort of a feel. It's a couple of guys working in a call center who are super miserable. It's just a really dark comedy. British Canadian dark comedy. It's a crime movie, and with two guys who are working in a call center, and then this woman who uses thallium to poison her victims. And so it must be in my head from that. Highly recommend the movie. Big Nothing. Watch it. 2006. Great fun times if you're into British style humor. But yeah, it's the other thing with thallium is the symptoms are so wide ranging. It's really difficult to actually diagnose someone who has thallium poisoning. It presents in so many ways that it could appear as almost anything. So yeah, it's if you're going down the poisoning route, then it's a really good thing to go for. Interestingly, there was actually a kind of craze of thallium poisonings. I think it was in the 50s in Australia. Yeah. Early 50s in Australia, there was a really big issue with rat infestations. So thallium became available over the counter. And it was effective. It was cheap. And they just marketed it under a commercial brand called Thal Rat. And
Thal Rat, and it was basically just
sold as rat poison, and it's super effective for killing humans. So, I mean, they called it a craze in the 50s of people poisoning each other with thallium in Australia. So, fine. It's super interesting, actually. But we will go back to our poor friend, Xiao Alex Wang. So, Alex, at this stage, had slipped into a coma, but they did test him, and sure enough, he had thallium poisoning. By the time he was diagnosed, Heidi had been at his bedside for 11 days. So they managed to get in the antidote, Prussian blue, and administered it, but at this point it was too late, and within a couple of days he had died. It was another 2 days later that she was arrested for his murder. It was super suspicious that she'd been making notes on all of his symptoms. It was also suspicious that she had made death threats to him.
I was going to say that. So you did bring that up, and that's of course where everyone probably went when we heard that he got sick. But so if he died, how do we know that she made death threats? Did he make notes of this or so, or?
It was brought up in testimony at a subsequent trial. As far as I can tell, he told his parents.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't a secret.
All right. Because the main thing, like, yes, it was good that they actually found it out at the hospital, but since we know that he had been threatened, then someone else must have kind of known, especially since he didn't make it. And if he had mentioned this to someone and then he went into the hospital and it got worse and worse and no one knew what was wrong, one would think that someone would have brought that up.
His parents were back in China, so it kind of makes sense that they didn't. And this also goes back to what we've been talking about for the last week or so about, do you believe death threats when they're made against you?
Yeah. Okay, the moral of our podcast for the last couple of episodes is apparently, yes, you should always believe the death threats.
Yeah, and make notes of them
get murdered,
everywhere.
please.
Yeah, don't get murdered. Believe the death threats. Oh, that's so bad. Watch out for the warning signs, at least. So there were a few other things that seemed super dodgy. So, of course, she had studied chemistry and was working at this pharmaceutical company, but she also happened to have placed an order for thallium for a specific research task that couldn't really be explained within her job. So it's sort of fine for her to order it, but on further, and at a glance, you don't think too much of it.
Yeah.
But when actually she was pushed for an explanation, there was no reasonable explanation that could be given. And the final piece of damning evidence, she bought one-way tickets for her and her son to fly back to Beijing, where she was originally from.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, she was arrested 2 days after her husband's death, so she never went back to China. Instead, she stood trial. The evidence was pretty damning, and I mean, I'm surprised there's not more evidence, but it's kind of enough. And the journal that she used to keep notes on his symptoms was also used in court. And sure enough, she was convicted. She was convicted on the 9th of July 2013. She was convicted of actually first-degree murder and third-degree hindering apprehension in connection to the thallium poisoning of her husband, whatever that means.
Wait, hindering apprehension?
Yeah, hindering apprehension. I don't know.
What?
Let me check.
I mean, my instinctive thing, like when I hear apprehension, I think apprehend, arrest, and hindering is generally with, stopping police. So my initial connection, which sounds a bit too ludicrous, is just she was too good at covering up her own crime in the beginning that the police didn't know it, so then they're putting extra charges on her. Which is silly, of course, but yeah.
No, I don't know. And of course I'm blocked from a whole bunch of sites because we're in the EU. Everywhere.
GDPR is not hard, people.
You'd think. So the third degree hindering apprehension in connection of the thallium poisoning of her husband thing.
Do tell.
That comes from a press release, and it's the only reference I can find anywhere. And every news source seems to quote it in the exact same way or completely ignore it. So what I take from that is no one understands it. What I can tell you is she got 5 years for the hindering thing, but it was going to be served concurrently with the life sentence that she was given for the first degree murder charge. So the judge ordered that she had to serve at least 62 years and 6 months of that sentence. Now, she did appeal it. She tried to argue that her command of the English language wasn't... wow, this is a good moment for me to get tongue-tied on, right? Wasn't good enough for her to fully understand her rights and what was going on, and she tried to have the whole thing overturned, but later a trial judge found that she had a good grasp on the English language. Bear in mind she'd been in the US for 13 years at this point, and she'd studied at the University of Pennsylvania as well as the University of Washington, all in English, of course. So it didn't really hold up, but I guess it's easier to debate whether or not your English is good enough as a non-native English speaker versus whether or not you poisoned your husband when you've been making threats. You work as a chemist, you ordered the poison that killed him, and you kept a journal of all the poisoning symptoms.
That's kind of the thing. Like,
and bought way tickets.
Like, there is nothing with language comprehension unless she, mistook thallium for vitamin D when she read on the bottle or something that would actually excuse the murder. I know that people need to have a fair trial, and of course they need to understand and everything.
Yeah,
but
I agree. Of
that
course.
having that as the only point of basing an appeal, when no, we have this evidence you murdered this guy, that is ridiculous. I would have built a better case. Well, I would have wanted to. I'm not saying that I'm a good lawyer. But yes.
I would like to lawyer for a day, please.
Really?
I wanted to be a lawyer whenever I was a kid. That was my thing. I think I just like arguing. But anyway, stories from another day.
True.
But that's my story this week.
Yeah, I mean...
It's pretty cut and dry, sorry.
Pretty cut and dry, but the thallium thing is interesting. Do feel bad for... the kid, though, of course. Yeah,
the kid. So the trial went on for 2 years. So the kid was in care. It seems like he was in temporary care until he was 4. And then I think they found a permanent home for him. I'm not 100% though what happened. It's kind of sad. It's
also, like, when it is someone that young, then... you don't really get a story from them either, as opposed to a lot of other... I think the majority of the crimes we've spoken about, when there have been kids involved, then they have been of an age that they are like more involved in the narrative, let's say.
Yeah, I think that's true. That's it for me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are going to have a couple of seconds of music, and then I'm going to go into my crime.
Play the music.
was going to say, I'll have a sippy, but
Sippy, sippy, sippy.
we're back with sippies and everything.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to tell you a story.
Tell me your story.
So, we are, as well, we discussed all the travel and everything. We're slightly more global with my crime. Even though you have the melting pot in one place, I'm a bit more global.
Okay.
But we're starting back in the Netherlands.
Hey! Okay, somewhere close to home for us.
Kind of, yes. This week we're specifically going to check in on Rotterdam,
Okay.
which is the second largest city of the country.
I think I know what crime you're going to do.
I think you might know of it.
Is there an English guy?
No.
Okay. No, I don't know. Never mind. Okay. Sorry.
I still suspect you might, or you probably have heard of it. But in Rotterdam,
Yes.
we are going to the rather well-known museum, the Kunsthal.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Ooh, interesting.
This is all new to me.
Cool. Well, the Kunsthal has been around for a while. It's, like I said, it's art museum specifically. And they were organizing their 20th anniversary. And they put up an exhibition called Avant-Garde, which they set up, and it opened in early October 2012.
Ooh, this is frightfully recent.
Well, 6 years, I guess. Oh, less than 6 years. So the main focus of this exhibition was artwork mostly loaned from the Cordia family, which was a part of the, as in the art, was a part of the Triton Foundation collection.
Okay.
Quite big. It was described as containing representative works by the most important and influential artists of the late 19th century to the present day. So the Cordia family is just a really rich old family, a lot of investments. They had art and they took part of this foundation.
Very nice.
Not the most interesting bits.
Okay.
But yeah, so the exhibit opened in early October 2012. But unfortunately, the exhibition had to close rather early because on the 16th of October, there was a break-in at the museum.
Okay.
So a group of thieves had made their way through the rear emergency exit, apparently without using any force. Like they didn't see any like violent impacts or so on the doors.
Oh, that's ridiculous. I wonder if someone came out of it earlier in the day and just put a stick in and then...
Either that, like there was a lot of speculation. Like some people, like there was a huge timeline with speculation, partially with statements from the museum and other things. But we'll get to some of those things. But like what they saw was like there was no real force mark on the doors. So they basically got in there smoothly. They ran up and grabbed 7 paintings.
Yeah.
Put them in sacks, like plastic sacks.
Yeah.
And then fled. And all of this was like under 2 minutes. I think it was slightly over 90 seconds or so.
That is efficient.
Yeah. And the weirder thing is like I saw bits of the security footage, especially the ones covering the emergency exit. And they look really calm and relaxed. They just like walk in, look around a bit and like, oh, waving their friend in, they're going over. Then they come back and they're carrying the stuff. And like one opens the door and they just like jaunt out. It looks really relaxed. I mean, they were pretty well covered. They had like hoodies on and a bit of face coverage and stuff like that. So the paintings that were stolen were, first off, Pablo Picasso's Harlequin Head.
Okay.
Henri Matisse's Reading Girl in White and Yellow.
Okay.
One of my favorites, as we know. Well, the artist, not the actual...
I love Matisse.
Yes.
But I love Picasso as well, depending on the period.
True. They got 2 Monets. It was Waterloo Bridge and Charing Cross Bridge. And they got a Gauguin, a Girl in Front of Open Window. They got from Meijer the Haan, self-portrait, and Lucien Freud, woman with eyes closed. In case you need a memory jogger, I have pictures of all
I
of them.
love when you do pictures. Oh, I love the Monet. The Monet's my favourite out of those. It's very calming.
I actually really like the last one I mentioned, the girl with the closed eyes. My printout doesn't quite do it justice, but so after the theft, one Job Ubens.
Very Dutch.
Is a
The first name, I don't know. The second name's a bit weird.
But it's not Job, it's Job. It's like one O, which I thought was strange.
Is it P or B?
P.
Okay, that's weird.
Well, I thought so.
Nope. Don't know.
Sorry, Mr. Ubens, but yes, it's weird. So Ubens was the chairman of the art dealer / like auction house.
Yeah.
Christie's.
In London.
They are in London, but they have an Amsterdam branch as well.
Okay. Didn't know that.
So he commented on the theft with, and I'm quoting, it's all about name and fame. So the Picasso's is best known.
Yeah.
The least well known is Meijer de Haan, the self-portrait one.
Yeah.
But it looks like a Gauguin, so maybe that was a mistake, was his comment. But he also did state that it was pretty likely that the paintings were stolen to order by an art collector. Which meant they would probably be like hidden away and in a private collection, and basically risk of them resurfacing was pretty low.
Yeah. So they also think it's in someone's bathroom, or some of it's in someone's bathroom.
Well, I was going to say like vault or dungeon or something. But yeah, so that was one of the main theories, but also because like it is not too easy to when we're talking really well-known art and also stuff that is immediately reported through the registries and that.
Yeah.
To actually sell that is tricky.
Yeah. Most of the value for these is the name.
Kind of is, yeah.
Which is kind of pointless.
And the uniqueness, I suppose. But yeah, so the thing I said with like reporting as well. So we have the art loss register. Mm-hmm. I'm not too happy with them, to be honest, because I tried to check this up with them, but they also, in the similar way, like the Australian court record thing, they have like, no, you need to go through an entire application process, they need to pay, and they need to pay per search and stuff like that. And like, I would assume that it would benefit them to, you know, make that information easily accessible.
You think, but then again...
Yeah, but regardless, at the time of the robbery, the art loss register estimated the paintings in total could have been worth, as in combined, hundreds of millions of euros.
Shit.
That's a lot of money.
It kind of is.
So as for the actual Kunsthalle, the museum, one security expert was right after this quoted to, like he described the museum as, it was designed by apparently a very well-known Dutch architect, Rem Koolhaas. And the security expert, though, described it as, quote, a gem of a gallery, but a nightmare to protect. Did he explain why? Well, I've never been myself, but from all the statements and everything, it looks like, hey, it's like beautiful with the layout and the halls and everything, but like some things, well, obviously these people had little issue getting in. At the time, like he was pretty sure that they had spent like months plotting the robbery and made comments on that, but like there were some things, like for instance, you could from the outside like look in and survey the entire room where these were hanging through a window, and it wasn't too tight of a security measure, but they had like state-of-the-art alarms and everything. The police made one, when I read it just sounded a little bit confused, but comment to the press saying that the alarm system in the Kunsthalle is supposed to be state-of-the-art. We've got no reason to believe that it's not, but somehow the people responsible for this found a way in and out. That's such a bullshit statement. It kind of is, yes. Fuck that. But to be fair to the alarm system, the alarms did go off as they went in. Yeah. And the police responded, I think it was less than 5 minutes for them to respond. Yeah. But by that time, like the thieves took slightly more than 90 seconds. They were long gone by then. So they couldn't find any trace of them. No way. So there was a lot of speculation regarding the fate of these paintings during the following months, but no real solid leads came up.
Oh no, I think I do know this.
I think you might.
Oh no. Yes.
Probably. So no solid leads came up until January in 2013.
And it was cold. Someone might have had a fire.
We'll get there.
Oh.
Because that is also not... Well, we'll see. We'll see. So, in January 2013, 3 men were arrested for the robbery.
Yeah.
They were arrested in Bucharest.
Awesome.
They were all
Romania.
apparently from Tulcea. It's located like almost on the easternmost point of Romania, where
Okay.
it kind of, there's a tiny bit that kind of sticks out to the east.
Okay.
The water. And they were first Radu Dogaru, Alexandru Bitu, and Eugen Darie. And I'm sorry for all that.
It sounded a lot better than my weird version of Chinese names earlier.
So the very first reports of the arrests were a bit sketchy. I had difficulties finding something to attempt to translate from Romanian press. There were more, especially British press, referring to reports from Romania. The very first ones said that the reason they were arrested was because they had found 2 of the paintings in their possession.
Yeah.
But there were no paintings recovered. It kind of swapped to that statement later.
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure what happened, but they were arrested. Later that year, 10th of July in 2013, they had done enough of an investigation in the case to where they were to be prosecuted.
Yeah.
So by this time, they had concluded in total there were 6 Romanians put on trial for the case,
Wow.
including one that was tried in absentia and one who was not under arrest for some reason, but still tried. But they had, I guess they kept tabs on them.
How can you try someone who's in absentia? That's a bit...
Well, I mean, trying in absentia isn't that way. Like, if you
But
know
why
that they
would you
had
do that?
fled the country or so.
Oh, okay, yeah.
To, like,
fine,
set a verdict
fine,
so they
fine,
can
fine,
be-
fine. So then
yeah.
you can actually extradite them, because you're more
Yeah.
likely to extradite in a case like this than you are to say we have a warrant out for...
I would assume so. And like, this was a
yeah.
very big international deal in general,
Yeah.
as it is with, well, I mean, art, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah, details, don't have all of them during the proceedings, but we do know in October, same year, the main 3 Romanians I mentioned earlier, they pled guilty to the robbery.
Well, that's something.
A bit later in 2013, also another of the co-criminals named Adrian Prokop was
Yeah.
arrested in Manchester.
As in England.
Yep. So he was arrested then. I'm assuming that was the one who was tried in absentia, but I couldn't get the name connected, but I'm assuming.
Okay.
But he was extradited back to Bucharest in early 2014 and tried with the rest of them, or, well, convicted with the rest of them.
Yeah.
So in the deposition to the prosecutors, the suspects, the main 3 especially, said they brought the paintings to Romania. They tried to sell them on the black market, but they were unsuccessful.
Yeah, funny that.
Yeah. And then they left them with Dogaru's mother, Olga Dogaru.
Oh, dear. Olga. Did Olga know what she was doing?
Well, I mean,
Did she take care of them at least?
I think she made some conscious decisions. So before we get to that, I will mention, because there's a lot of kind of ridiculous points that got more and more ridiculous as this trial progressed.
Like,
because,
she didn't like the Picasso, so she turned it round to face the wall.
no, not even that. Like, just around the crime in general. Like, you remember the quote from the security expert and all the speculation on that.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, by this point, the suspected and later kind of confirmed leader of the thieves, which was Radu, the son of Olga, he told the court that when they stole the paintings, he thought they were fakes. Because he,
That doesn't
quote,
work.
could not believe you could enter as easily as that.
Actually, I mean,
There is a point. I'm not sure
A
how
little
fair it
bit.
is, but
I mean,
there is a point.
yeah, I mean, just because it's easy pickings doesn't mean you should.
No,
But-
no. I mean, it's still a crime.
Yeah, but
but
no. But I'm just like, it's an interesting defense.
Mm.
Like, yeah.
But it kind of gets better.
Okay.
The guy later told more about the actual theft and the setup for everything. He was very forthcoming in hopes, and I think, well, mostly hopes of getting a lesser sentence. So he told them how he and his accomplices, they were all, like all of them were Romanian, but they were all living as expats in the Netherlands. They had like been kind of interesting in stealing art, but they basically didn't know anything about art. And the gang just like went around and looked up Dutch museums, apparently through searching for museums on their car's GPS.
Wow. That's pretty embarrassing more than anything else.
Well, above all, it's more embarrassing to the security experts.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just go around them and see.
So apparently, at first, they were considering targeting Rotterdam's Natural History Museum.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if they were overestimating. Like, no, we can't fit a dinosaur skeleton in our car or something like that. But then they actually happened upon a poster advertising this celebratory 20th anniversary thing,
No.
and decided, oh, screw it, we'll go there.
Oh, no way.
But so they went in with, well, little difficulty. After they had fled the scene of the robbery, the paintings were taken across the border in pillows.
Pillows or pillowcases?
So they mentioned pillows. I know that what they did was they had basically ripped up the seams and just stuffed the artwork inside. So I'm assuming pillows to make it a bit fluffier, I guess.
Yeah, why not?
And since, I mean, we have the whole, I'm assuming Romania is part of the Schengen, but in general, the European Union, it's not that hard to get around.
Yeah, I mean, you drive over borders, and even if they're not, then they don't patrol borders generally over here. So.
Exactly. So, yeah, they had their pillows. They pretty easily went into Romania again. And then they just had like a cheap carry bag where they put all the paintings in as they traveled through Romania into Bucharest. And
It's a long drive, though.
Yeah. Back to the trial. You do remember Olga, the mother.
Yes.
So at the starting point, she was mainly charged with handling stolen property.
Mm-hmm.
So at the start of this, before the trial started and the investigators interviewed her, she had kind of described in detail how she handled the paintings.
Yeah.
So she first buried the artwork in an abandoned house. Then later, I'm guessing she got nervous, she moved it to a cemetery in the village of Caracliu.
Okay.
Then in February, she brought them back home to her house, and she described in pretty good detail how she burned all of the paintings in the back of her house after the arrests in order to protect her son.
Yeah, good job on that. Where is he now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's horrible.
So this was, she described all of this, gave that as a statement.
I don't understand why she admitted to this.
According to her, she didn't.
Okay, continue, explain.
So we'll get through this. So when this first came up, the Romanian investigators, and they had some experts from other museums and such, they looked through her fireplace and they found pigments.
Yeah.
And well, specifically, they found also painting primer, remains of canvas and paint. There was a high probability of correlation due to the amounts of lead, zinc, and azurite in the remains. And they also found like nails used to fasten the canvas, which would have been of the correct age for the stolen paintings.
Whoa.
And they found that in her fireplace.
That's horrible.
But Olga later changed her story and completely denied that she had burned the paintings and that she had said that she did.
Come on, lady, tell us.
So, no, sorry. She completely denied that she had burned the paintings at all. She didn't deny saying it.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
What she said after she changed her story, she did say on the court record that I believed that what I said before was the best thing at the moment, that this was the right thing to do. And then when people followed up and asked her what actually happened to the stolen art, she kind of got a bit flustered and then mostly just repeated that, oh, no, there was no burning of artwork at all.
Crazy bitch. Sorry, I'm just like, don't burn art. There's a million other things you can do with it. It is just, it's not hurting anyone. It's just destruction for, well, it's not destruction for destruction's sake, but it is destruction for no real reason, because it didn't even keep them out of jail in this case. And
I think, I mean, I'm guessing that was the hope. So yeah.
I guess nowadays you would have been able to pull touch DNA off it and all that kind of stuff.
Probably.
But so leaving them abandoned at the side of the road probably isn't great either. But, you know, in a box with a bunch of kittens near a firehouse, couldn't that do the trick or something? I don't know.
Leave it in the cemetery. I don't know.
Yeah. Although then it rains or, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just don't burn it.
But Olga's son, Radu, he also denied that the paintings had been burned.
Yeah.
During the court proceedings. He said that the remains of paint, canvas and nails that the specialists found would probably have come from possibly a fence with handmade nails from the 19th century.
Interesting.
Or apparently he also stated that, no, we used to have like a lot of 19th century icons in the home that could have been burned. But
no.
So yeah, the mother had previously said things like the boys hadn't been able to find buyers and corroborated that. No buyers for the stolen art, and she was worried about the evidence being discovered.
Yeah.
It is worth noting that the crime for destroying the paintings, I just saw, of course, a direct translation of something, but I'm assuming this might be a Romanian thing because it was Romanian proceedings, but there was something of destruction leading to great tragedy or something like that. It sounded rather pompous and nice, and I kind of wish I had written it down. But that crime would have led to a sentence between 5 or 10 times longer than what would have been for handling stolen goods and aiding and abetting and all that.
I am glad. People don't care about art crime as much, I think, because in some ways arguably the only victims are the rich, but no, the only victims are the public.
Yeah, it's history and culture and stuff.
Yeah,
they're the
I
victims.
think it's horrible.
But so yeah, like when I saw the normal sentences for the various crimes next to each other, like, okay, I kind of see why a story could have been changed, maybe.
Yeah, it's too late, love.
So, well, I'm not sure. So Radu also explained more afterwards, and he said that the paintings were handed over to a Russian-Ukrainian man who he had identified and written down the man's address on a piece of paper for the court.
Okay.
But the name was not publicly confirmed, and they didn't really find anything on that, I think.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah, kind of.
Oh.
So Radu, who at this point was 30 years old, he had admitted to planning the heist. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison in February 2014.
Okay.
His accomplice Daria got 5 years and 4 months. Prokop, the man who was captured in Manchester, for the actual theft, he was sentenced to 4 years and 8 months. But he also got more convictions. I guess he had separate previous crimes that they brought up, which padded out his time a bit. And Radu's mother was jailed for 2 years.
What was her final charge?
I think they only got the. I don't think. Well, I know they didn't get the destruction causing great tragedy, or I don't think they could conclusively prove that. Apparently, but they were also collectively to be made to pay 18 million euros to the artwork's insurers, which compared to the previous estimates of hundreds of millions of euros, it's not quite the same, but it's still is probably a hefty amount for them.
Yeah, but I mean, are they likely to ever see any of that?
I do not know. I'm not sure how they handle that. I mean, that would be tricky to get for anyone, I would assume. However, the lawyers defending the Degars, they said that they would contest the ruling, and they tried, specifically the payment to the insurers, since they thought the museum should pay the bill. I couldn't find a follow-up decision, so I'm just assuming that it didn't go that well.
Yeah.
But the lawyer had been quoted as saying, "In the first place, we don't believe the stolen paintings were the originals. Secondly, it's up to the museum to pay because it took the stupid risk of displaying the artwork without a proper surveillance system."
I mean, to be fair, that's not really your call to make, sir. But
No,
to be fair, yeah, maybe the security could have been a bit tighter.
it probably could have. It doesn't sound like anything came from that, but it's kind of like, yes, there is a point to that, but always the whole thing of like, no, if you didn't want someone to burn down your house, you wouldn't have made it out of wood. Like, it's kind of that.
No, I'm not. I don't want to say it's the museum's fault, but it's also like,
Yeah.
I imagine they're going to be a bit more careful in future. Like, it's obviously not the museum's fault. They shouldn't have stolen them. They shouldn't have. Oh, anyway.
No, this is true, but like also looking at these
Amateurs.
just stumbling upon this and going in and just carrying it off and crossing the continent with the stolen goods while not knowing what they're doing.
It is kind of ridiculous. It would make a very good slapstick silent movie.
Kind of would, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. But yeah, so that's the end as far as I could find. Like the as a rounding off, we have a statement from the Cordia family. Well, they told the Dutch newspapers that the only statements we as a family want to give is that it's a shame that, in all probability, these works of art no longer exist and will no longer be viewable by us as a family or by the public. And this is because of the greed of another.
I mean, that is true. And
It is true, but I know, like I said, I'm sorry, it might have been a bit wobbly this case, but it's weird. It's weird on a big scale and strangely fumbly. Like, I'm, after reading all of this and more, I'm relatively certain that she unfortunately burned the paintings. I want to hope that that's not the case.
yeah, I think she did too.
But yeah.
That's horrible. That's so horrible.
But maybe there is a Russian-Ukrainian man running around somewhere unable to fence this and then giving up in like 2 years and then sending them back or something.
I would like to see a forger make some. Make replicas of them.
And then pretend that they were refound, or?
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. Forgery stories are normally interesting. Well, the whole forgery profession, I guess, if you can call it that, is kind of interesting.
We should do a forger episode.
Probably should. Okay, that was my crime.
I like it. We're very cut and dry this week.
Yeah.
Well, this Tuesday. Why am I saying Monday?
Why would you say Monday? We
we
never
never
knew
do
Monday.
it on Monday.
We don't even acknowledge each other's existence on Mondays.
And Mondays aren't our day.
Nope.
No. Okay. What are you feeling in terms of drinks? I could do Pim's thing for you, but it's kind of like warm weather.
It's always warm in here, though, right?
I'm cold.
Really?
Yeah, aren't you?
Well, I'm working on it. I have an ice pack, but I do not know. We shall retire and go to the Cabinet of Wonders and see what we come up with.
Okay, we'll return shortly.
Be right back. And we're back
We're back.
with a special guest as well.
We're back with a special guest who is not on mic.
So, what are we drinking tonight?
So tonight we took a cue from our Romanian Thieves book and decided to do a half-arse job and pretend it was a bit of a happy accident. So we're having tequila and lime and salt. And happy Tuesday, everyone. We hope you have a really good week. Let's see how it goes.
Foundation of happy accidents.
We do have some supervision in the background just in case. But I think we'll be fine. So how is it? We do salt, tequila,
and lime.
Salt, tequila, lime. I had a friend who actually is a bit of a tequila connoisseur and tried to teach me to sip it once and really appreciate it, and it never really worked. So
I think you did mention that. You did mention that this person also like uplifted the virtues of the salt and the citrus, I suppose.
Yeah, he did back that up. Well, to absent friends.
And wait, what did he call it?
To fortunate accidents?
Fortunate accidents, yes.
To fortunate accidents.
Fair enough. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, it's been a while.
It's Tuesday.
I'm awake.
Oh, that was not right at all. Oh, that was a bad decision.
A lot of pain faces in this room.
No.
Well, not anymore.
Yeah, you know what? No.
Just no.
Just no. And it's not like I don't like tequila. Wow. That was a bad decision.
All according to plan, then.
I had this after a cherry beer. Like, what was I thinking? It just tastes horrible. If I'd have been drinking anything else this evening, I think it would have been fine, but ugh. But that's us for this week.
Yeah, I suppose it is.
Why do I keep saying week?
It's actually
Tuesday.
Convinced me as well.
It's Tuesday. What is wrong with me?
That's us for tonight.
It's us for tonight. As usual, we hope you have a great week. Thank you so much for listening. We are... Can I say we? Do you mind me saying we? I'm very excited that we have listeners all over the world.
Oh, yes, you can say we. I was going to say, like, asking if I'm okay with it before you actually say what I'm agreeing to. I
like you on tequila.
Shush. I'm fully on board with that statement, as are we, as the CBTVs.
The CBTVs. I've pre-agreed this with Jonatan. We are very excited that we have listeners all over the world. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here on this journey with us. And we hope you have an awesome week.
Indeed. And we will talk at you more on Friday.
Yeah. In the meantime, you can reach out to us on Twitter at Crime by the Bar.
Or you can send an email to crimebythebar@gmail.com.
And find all the bonus stuff, including the recipe for today's cocktail at crimebythebar.com.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I didn't measure the alcohol this week, so it might be a bit of a rough one, but we'll see how we go.
But I mean, that's the wonderful adventure of mixology. You need to dive in and experiment. Like, are we doing 50 centiliters of tequila? Are we doing 60? Who knows?
It was... How many fingers? We judge things by fingers back home. It was 3 fingers of tequila. And these are tall glasses.
Your fingers or my fingers?
Well, that's the point. You have more blood in your system and you have fatter fingers, so you can probably take more.
I've never thought of it like that.
You have so much to learn.
At the same time, I'm pretty sure that there are really tiny people with wider, stockier fingers than I have.
Yeah.
I have the spindly piano fingers. Even though my hands are big, my fingers are a bit spindly.
My hypothesis is those people can process alcohol very well.
Well, obviously.
Let's find out.
Since they're agreeing to the measurement.
I don't know that they did. But thank you for listening, and you'll hear from us again on Friday.
You will. And until then, we say bye.
Bye. No, in answer to your question, I don't think I have ever produced my own belly button fluff. I could seek out a transplant, I'm sure, but
That's the whole point of the story as well. Like,
I don't have it. I don't have any. I therefore don't have any stories relating to how it gets there. So
fair enough.
apparently we have a Swedish tale, or at least a tale from your childhood.
Oh, I don't remember all the details. I know that it's supposed to be a tiny troll putting the linty stuff in there.
That's creepy.
And I think the main reason why it most of the time comes out blue is because the troll is blue or has blue hair, but I might be misremembering.
Why did this come up? Is this what tequila does to you? Because if so, we need to do this every week or every episode. I love this.